glad you are with us on Wealth by Design. Brad Johansson, Tom Elder, president of Retirement Wealth Design. How are you, my friend?
I'm not as good as you today, my friend.
What are you talking about?
Man, you are just one of the happiest people, I feel like, that to be around. Like, your attitude always brings up everybody else around you. And I just love being around you.
Right back at you. This is what you do. And there's a passion to that. And I'm grateful to be with you and be able to share it with you guys as well. We're thrilled to have you with us in trying to figure this whole thing out. You've been doing this whole market thing, right? I mean, for the most part, that's what you've been told. While I go, put the money in the market, buy and hold. This is the best way to go. But you know what? Things start to change. And I think that you may be feeling it even in this year. Because, golly, we've had a run, right? The market is gone. It goes, it goes, it goes. And recency bias tells us it's just going to keep doing the same thing. And then suddenly you have a war. Or suddenly there's tariffs, or suddenly there's something else going on that's the what if. They go, hey, hold it, this is throwing a wrench. So how do I start to work with market volatility and change that? We like to talk about this as kind of the retirement red zone, the 5 years going into and the 5 years into retirement. And how do we adjust that? Why should it be different than anything we've been doing for the last 30 years, Tom?
That's a fantastic question. And I will tell you, I think that you hit the nail on the head with one of the things that you said. What I mean by that is, right now, if you're watching this and you feel sometimes like you need to open up your account and check because you just read a news story and you have this gut feeling like your account's dropping, and that kind of wrecks your day when you see that because you just have a sinking feeling in your stomach. There's plenty of people that have felt that way in the past. Actually, I had somebody recently that had felt that way. She had come to me last year because, if you recall, Brad, that last year in April, the market took a little bit of a dip, and it came back. But when that happened, she felt exposed. She felt like this wasn't real comfortable for her seeing her portfolio drop that much. And so she wasn't sure if she was in the right risk category for her stage. She was within about 3 years of retirement or so, she thought. And so she set an appointment with me. We just spoke casually about it, kind of dug into the purpose of her savings and put a plan together for her. And when I did the analysis, it sure turned out that she was taking more risk than she was comfortable with, which I would say probably about half the people that I sit down with think that they're conservative, and they're not necessarily conservatively invested.
What you're telling me is it's a flip of a coin as to whether people actually know where they're invested in, their risk tolerance, and whether it even measures with their risk capacity.
Well, think about it, right? You open up your portfolio and there's all these mutual funds and there's 15 different, I've seen some that have hundreds of different investments. The average person doesn't know what's inside of those. Shoot, I have to do an analysis of it and use some software to really pull out what's inside of it.
Yeah.
And I pay a lot of money for that software. The average person that might use it once or twice isn't going to pay that much money for that software to do it for them. So what we found was that she was taking more risk than she was comfortable with, and we adjusted the risk in her portfolio. And then late last year, turns out that even though she wasn't planning on it, her company downsized, and she was let go prior to when she was planning to retire. And so she called me up when this happened. She said, Tom, I just got out of a meeting with my boss. I am no longer employed. Am I able to retire?
Oh, my goodness.
And I will tell you, it was an amazing thing because she came into my office the next day and we sat down and went through it, and she was wondering if she could retire. So her plan was to retire 3 years after last year. When we went through it, though, she was able to retire. And so now we're able to afford, she's not quite 65, she's able to afford health care, which was her big hang up. I want to wait till I'm 65 years old when Medicare kicks in.
Yes.
We can actually, based off of her portfolio and the growth that we've experienced, we're able to afford health care. And so she's able to get health care. And now that's not the thing holding her back. And so she's actually able to retire, which if she's watching this and you know who I'm talking about, I love.
Congratulations.
Right, congratulations. But at the end of the day, you don't necessarily know until you go through the process. And that's why we're offering a complimentary written financial plan to take you through the process. I call it the Wealth on Purpose process. And at the end of the day, it's going to give you clarity, which will give you confidence that you are in control of your own retirement, that even if you do get let go, unfortunately, or something changes at work or something changes with your health, you're able to do it. And you're able to retire on your own terms versus trying to look for a job in your mid to late 60s or even early 70s. And that's one of the things that is really important to me. If you would like to have that complimentary consultation, give us a call. The number's right there on the bottom of the screen. It's 833-348-4813. And I would be happy to walk through it with you and explain to you where you stand, what that would look like, and when you could retire if you wanted to.
We talk about the different phases, and I kind of alluded to the first one, which is where most of us are in our working years. It's accumulation phase. Take me through that, and there are a couple other phases that we're now working through, and why it's important for us to understand where we are in those.
So, accumulation phase is when you're saving and building, and for most people, they're trying to save as big of a mountain of cash or savings that you possibly can.
Let's do it.
Right? And it feels good when the market is going up.
Feels good.
Now, candidly, I have never climbed Mount Everest, okay?
Candidly, I haven't either.
I mean...
No.
Okay.
And not going to happen.
Well, when you climb Mount Everest, right, you hire a Sherpa, right? A Sherpa is a guide.
Well, you have to, yeah.
You hire a Sherpa and you hire the guide. And so I actually had a client that was doing this. They're a little bit younger, but they were doing this. And I asked them, so what was the question that you asked the Sherpa when you interviewed them to guide you up the mountain? And they said, well, I asked them, how many times you made to the top?
That
how
should
many
be the
times you
first
made to the
question,
summit?
right?
Yeah, and I said, that's interesting. I said, I would have asked a different question.
Ooh.
And maybe this is just based off of what I do for a living. But I would have asked, how many people have you gotten down safely? Because I don't really, there's a place that you get to that is you don't turn back from, right? And it's either there or the summit. But you're not, like that's the point of no return, right? And so I would want to know a Sherpa that got everybody down successfully.
Yeah.
I don't really care about getting on top of my, and the same thing goes with retirement planning. It's not about how big of a mountain of cash or how big of a savings you can grow. That is the accumulation phase of growth. Retirement is getting down the mountain safely. It's a totally different phase. It's a totally different strategy. And having an experienced guide that gets people down the mountain safely is extremely important to have.
Distribution phase.
Exactly. The distribution phase is when you're pulling money out, the rules change, losses hurt you more than gains help you, and at the end of the day, we rewire our brains for how we need to think about money, meaning that it's not about investing in the highest risk, highest reward investment anymore. Now it's about keeping your money in your own pocket so you can actually go and spend it.
And then there's the preservation stage of how do we keep this to make sure that it's going to last until our last breath? That's part of the plan that you put together.
Yeah, it's about security. And it can be a little bit uncomfortable for that switch, right? Going from saving to spending, the mentality in there can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I will tell you, when people have felt that way that I work with, one of the things that we do is we just make sure they're getting that regular paycheck. Typically, they're getting paid multiple times a month, so it actually feels like when you're working, it gets direct deposit in your bank account, right? Taxes are withheld, and it feels like when you're working. And so the mental shift from saving to spending and making sure that we're preserving your wealth to be able to spend, it takes a load off, and it makes it a whole lot easier to actually enjoy what you've worked so hard to save.
That sigh of relief that says, you know what, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like that sigh? Phone call puts you in touch with Tom and his staff to put together a complimentary written financial plan. You can scan the QR code. Let's put together something on the calendar. So you say, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to at least get a second opinion. I'd kind of like a Sherpa to help get me down the mountain. And 833-348-4813 might be that guide that you've been looking for. and maybe today is the day. For some reason, you turned on the TV and said, you know what, this is probably what I need to watch. I'm getting close. I'm in that red zone of retirement. How do I figure this out? Anybody who's done it before? Tom has hundreds of times to be able to get you into the retirement plan that you want. 833-348-4813. How else do we get down the mountain? We'll talk about that when we get back.
Our entire vision for our growth at Retirement Wealth Design is to keep a personalized experience, to know every single person that we work with, but to bring into the fold other people that fit our culture, that care about the community, that care about the individuals, and that are the absolute best at their role that they can be. We want to make an impact in our community, and the first place that we start is making an impact in our team. So one of the things that we promote within our company is our own financial literacy and understanding. And then we try to promote that throughout the community. We want to be a pillar within our community. And I think that from a servant's heart perspective, our impact starts with us internally. And if we can serve our team is going to serve our clients, who are also going to serve our community.
Hey, so glad you are with us on Wealth by Design. Tom Elder, President of Retirement Wealth Design. What do you talk about that plan? What do you call the plan as your...
The Wealth on Purpose plan.
Wealth on Purpose. I love Wealth on Purpose.
Yeah.
Retirement Wealth by Design is the book. I want you to be able to have the book. Tom wants you to be able to have the book. It's why he wrote the book, so that you could have it. Scan the QR code. He'll do it for free. Send it out to you so that it can be educational for you to ask a few more questions so that you can come in and put your retirement plan together. Retirement Wealth by Design. I talked about at the beginning that this is the best way to do it. And you know what? And Tom, why would you talk me out of this? The market's the best place to be. Buy and hold strategy is the best thing that we've ever known. Yeah, I know the market goes up, the market goes down. But eventually the market goes up. It's higher today than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it's higher than it was 10 years before that. What's the problem about me worrying about 10 years from now as to whether or not I'm going to have the best strategy of the buy and hold in the market? Why do I need to change?
That's a great question. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also don't fully agree with that because there's different strategies for investing, right? The buy and hold strategy can be a great strategy, and it's considered a passive strategy to where we buy broadly based, diversified holdings like stocks, and we hold them and we ride the waves of the market. And I am optimistic about the stock market. When you invest in the stock market, you're investing in big, strong companies. Companies' business grows, they make money, you as a shareholder make money, everybody wins. However, it's not the only way to invest, right? There's other ways such as active investing. Active investing is taking an intentional approach to how you manage your investments, and you end up investing and weighting different sectors. Some people will actually leave the stock markets and move to cash or go all in. And active investing can also be a decent strategy. In any year, it's kind of a race between who's going to do better, active or passive investing. But then we have other styles or other tools to invest. Those are the two main styles, active and passive. But then we have alternative investments. We have safe investments. There are multiple investments now available to retail investors that weren't there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And for that reason, what I talk about in the book is how can we put these together, what is now available to retail investors, how can we combine different strategies for your benefit? It's one of the reasons Vanguard actually did a study a few years ago, and they compared somebody that invests by themselves to somebody using a financial advisor. And even given the fact that us financial advisors, we all use different investments and have slightly different strategies, overall, Vanguard found that those people that use financial advisors have a 3% better overall return when investing. And the reason being is we take the emotion out of it, and we also have the professional education to balance the investments appropriately.
So designation ends up being part of that. How are we allocated? Are we diversified in that? it's not, now you're moving to say it's not just diversification in the market, because you mentioned a bunch of mutual funds, where you may have a bunch of mutual funds and you're actually invested in a lot of the same things multiple times, Department of Redundancy department. But it's not just market investment now. It is different allocations. When you put this designed wealth plan together, you have to have money in different areas allocated differently for different purposes for the trip down the mountain.
Yeah, it's kind of so I have a couple of young boys at home, all right? And for anybody watching, young boys are active. Mine are very active, right? And in our house, we used to have this big window. It was in our family room. It was a great big window. It was a solid piece of glass. And sure enough, the boys were playing in the family room, and there ended up being a great big chip in the window after they were done playing. And we ended up, in order to get it fixed, we had to replace the entire window. What we replaced it with was a window that had different sections in it now. It wasn't one giant window. So that way, if this happens again, it's a smaller window that we have to replace. It doesn't destroy the whole window. I think about investing in a similar manner. When you have your investments all in just one style, one stock, one sector, one area, one type of investment, if it's just stocks, right, or if it's just bonds, or it's just all in one area, right? Well, the risk to you is if it gets a chip in it, the whole window is shot now. Versus when you have different sections, different panes of that window, if one pane gets a little chip in it, you only have to replace that pane. It doesn't wreck the entire window. That's kind of what happens with your portfolio. In that your portfolio, if you are properly spread out, they call it diversification, if you're properly spread out and maybe the technology stocks go down, the AI stocks are in a bubble and take a big hit, right? Well, if you're properly spread out for a retirement portfolio, then that one little sector is just a pain. And so it's not going to wreck your entire portfolio. The rest of it's going to keep you safe. And so in that situation too, you have other piles of money that you can pull from while that down sector recuperates and comes back up.
So this is tactical, and we go back to what I was talking about with the buy and hold, which for a lot of people is a passive way to go. I've found the right investments. I'm just going to let it ride and go here. I think in the retirement plan that you are putting together and talking about on every individual basis that it is that we have to stay tactical on this, because life's what ifs, especially in these last 30 years for us, are going to pop up, so that we need to have areas that we can make adjustments to. Where does our money come from?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that, so I like to quote, right, losses hurt you more than gains help you, all right? Now, that has two different sides of the coin. One is going to be the emotional side of it, right? When we look at our portfolio, if our portfolio dropped 30% from where it is today, that's not going to feel good, and that might even change our outlook on if and when we can retire. However, if our portfolio were to gain 30%, for most people, that's not really going to change their outlook on if and when they can retire. So it hurts from emotional, but from a portfolio just management perspective, the math side of it, right? All of a sudden, losses hurt you more than gains help you. If you have $1 million and you lose 50%, you have $500,000 in your account. If the next year the market bounces back 50%, well, now you're only growing 50% of $500,000, so your account is up to $750,000. You're in the hole $250K, even though you lost 50% and you gained 50%. And the problem is that when you're working and saving and accumulating, you have time to recover from that big of a loss. When you're in retirement and you're taking income out, you don't have that time anymore. Time is much more valuable, and so we need to make sure that our portfolio is set up that we're not all safe, but we're also not super high risk, that we have different buckets that we're able to pull from depending upon where we're at in an investment perspective.
This may be the time now, as you try to figure this whole thing out, to be tactical. That maybe there needs to be an adjustment in the plan. Maybe there at least needs to be a second opinion. Let's put together a complimentary written financial plan just for you. You can scan the QR code for that, 833-348-4813. to put this plan together so it does make sense, so that we can adjust where the money comes from, so that this retirement that you've always dreamed of can last until your last breath. 833-348-4830. Make the call now for yourself. We'll be right back.
How I got in the financial space was really based off my grandfather. My grandfather grew up in poverty, Great Depression, like a lot of people. He taught me that a full life is not about what you have, what you drive, what's in your bank account. The purpose of life, how to have a full life, is serving other people. I grew up in a great household, had a great dad that taught me a lot of lessons about work ethic. One of the biggest lessons he taught me was if you're going to do a job, do it right or don't do it at all. But my grandfather really instilled in me the servant's heart mentality. When I got old enough that I finally realized I could have an impact on the community around me, that I was given gifts that could be used to serve others, one of the people that I started with was my dad. My dad was a great father of four, worked his whole life, sacrificed for us. One of the areas that he told me that he had always struggled with and struggled to find good advice was finances. So when I realized that I had a gift for finances and that I could actually help those around me, I started with him. And he was one of my very first clients ever. And he still is today, and I'm proud to say he's successfully retired. Helps take care of my kids now. But that's how we treat everyone that we work with. We try to serve those around us, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here.
Glad you're with us. Wealth by Design. Brad Johansen, Tom Elder, President, Retirement Wealth Design. And his book is yours, so I want to make sure that you have the chance to get it. The Retirement Wealth by Design is put together to have an understanding. Ignorance is not bliss in the midst of this, which leads me to, you may be with an advisor. Most people have one. You may be on another advisor. Accumulation phase, you need one. Hopefully they've done really well for you while the market's done good. But at this point, a specialist is needed. And you say, I've got this portfolio who's done really well. What's in it? I don't know. Ignorance is not bliss. When people bring portfolios into you and say, you know what, I would like a second opinion, let's go through this, what do you find?
I find that people aren't professional financial advisors, and it is absolutely normal to not know what is in your portfolio, nor would I expect you to unless you are doing it all yourself. And in which case, that takes a lot of time, research, and education. And so if you want to be a professional financial advisor for your own retirement, have at it, right? Read my book. It's going to have a lot of tips and tricks from helping hundreds of people and some of the best practices that I found. However, if you want to be able to enjoy your time, enjoy your freedom, and spend time doing what you want and not having to watch the market, then not knowing what's in your portfolio is often common, and especially when you've been with the same investment advisor or if you've been in the same 401k for a number of years, that's very common, right? People kind of set it and forget it, and things work out the way that they work out, and if it's been going well, then there's no reason to look further into it. However, I just had about 2 months ago somebody that came in, they just had a feeling of, I think I'm in good shape. I just want a second opinion of am I in good shape? And you offered something for free, so I figured I would take it, which is fantastic because that's momentum, right? That's moving forward in a new direction. And so I did that, and what their feeling that they felt, what they found was that we did this portfolio analysis. They had been with their advisor for 15 years, and inside of their portfolio, they had multiple stocks that were heavily weighted in a single company. Their portfolio was 20% in one single company. They were 1 year away from retirement.
Oh my
And
goodness.
what that means is that one company is essentially in charge of whether or not and when you can retire. If the company is doing great, you're in great shape. You can retire on time. However, if the company gets a bad news story, if there's a bad tweet, if that sector of the economy goes down, meaning maybe it's technology, right? And technology takes a hit. All of the sudden, your retirement plans are put off because of this single company that you have nothing to do with. And so what we ended up doing for this individual is we did a free market analysis for them. We took a look at how they were invested. I have some very, very good software that breaks down very, very simplistically.
Yeah.
Right. I like to keep things very, very simple and easy to understand. And we can go as deep as you want to, but I like to keep it simple and easy to understand. And we walked through this, and I pointed out that they have 20% in the one company they didn't know, and they had no idea. And when I brought it up, they said, "That's not a good idea, is it?" And I said, "I would do something differently," right? And so then we talked about what different is. And sure enough, when we plugged in different, all of a sudden their retirement timeline went from being able to retire at 67 to then they could retire at 65. And it made a world of difference on their outlook, on their job satisfaction, because they said they started showing up to work now with a better attitude because they knew like the end is near. and what ended up happening was it changed the whole game for them. And if that's something that you're watching this right now and you don't know where you're at, or you've been invested the same way for the last 5, 10, 15 years, and you're approaching retirement or you're freshly in retirement, give me a call. I'll do this for free. There's no risk. There's no obligation. I'm not asking you to sign a bunch of paperwork or anything like that. Just sit down and have a conversation with me. Call the number 833-348-4813, and I'm happy to have the conversation. And I'll do a free investment analysis for you. I'll take a look at how you're invested, and you might be invested exactly how you think you are, but you might not. And you don't know that until we do the analysis.
Timing. I mean, for that client, it was time. We talk about people trying to time the market. Still haven't figured anybody out who can do that on a consistent basis. Here's your timing. What about now? Is it time for you to ask the question and say, I just have that feeling that maybe I need a second opinion because I'm not really sure what I have in my portfolio either. Maybe it might be best to have Tom take a look at it and go, am I balanced the way I want to? Because here's my timeline. And then once I'm done, I kind of like to just retire once and do it the right way for the next 30 plus years, maybe for you. 833-348-4813 to put together a complimentary written financial plan that's yours and yours alone. After watching, you got a feeling? Make the call. Do it for yourself. The time is now. Grateful for your time here. See you in the office and right back here next time on Wealth by Design.